from our good friend Kyle Kalinske, who hates you. They hate the working class. They hate the American worker in general. They call you flyover states. And Kyle Kalinske posted this video, which is going viral, of factory workers. This is it. Let me play the video for you. Here's a fat, middle-aged guy sewing some shorts or some other shirt. Some fat, obese American women sewing things.
Love the music.
Here's a guy making some bras. Some white people making phones. That's crazy. Make America great again, it says. And the left is laughing. They love it. There's another meme that they share where it's a guy in a MAGA hat wearing a ribbon that says "fell for it again," who says, wait a minute, there's a mistake. I thought I was going to own the factory and be rich, as Trump pumps a shotgun and says, sew the effing socks. This is what they think about you. The American workers who work in factories or who wish their factories remained open that were outsourced to foreign countries. The example that I've been citing consistently now is the My Pillow factory. You got a bunch of workers at the My Pillow factory who love their jobs, and they're making socks and they're making pillows. And the American liberal is making fun of these people with AI generated memes, mocking the idea that Americans would want to work a job that pays well.
Well, I mean, I don't think that Americans would not want to work a job that pays well, but I do think that the idea of returning, the factory jobs. I mean, you were talking about this the other night. I don't think factory jobs on this, this type of factory jobs are coming back to the U.S.
Why not?
I mean, you were saying the other night that you don't think that they're bringing them back, these kind of jobs back here.
What specifically did I say?
I don't remember exactly what it was, but we were talking about re-onshoring jobs, and I forget who the guest was, but you were saying, no, I don't.
Gen Z is not going to do these jobs because they have ego problems.
Well, I mean, I don't think boomers
They're
would
already
either.
in the service industry, Gen Z.
I think it depends on where you're... Oh, sorry.
Well, I mean, I don't think that that's necessarily true because Gen Z is overwhelmingly in the service industry.
You think Gen Z would work factory jobs like this?
Especially if it paid better.
I think the issue with Gen Z is even if you were to work one of these jobs, your ability to buy a house, to own stocks, or any kind of wealth building doesn't exist. I mean, it has been largely wiped out. The challenge is if you're a boomer right now, and I know not all boomers are wealthy. We're here in Appalachia, but overwhelmingly boomers own homes. I think like boomers all typically own their house. They own about 60% of corporate equities, stocks, and mutual funds and things like this. Why are they going to sell it? So what happens is a Gen Z kid might get a job at this factory. Maybe it pays him $50,000, $60,000 a year. And then he says, okay, I've got some money. I want to buy some stocks. And the boomer's like, I ain't selling for that. I want more money. I don't need to sell it. I can liquidate. I'm okay. I've got my retirement. I don't need to sell to you, young man. And so that young person's like, even when I do have some leftover money, I can barely buy any stocks that move the needle. So what are they going to do? I think the issue that we have is not to say that all of Gen Z has ego problems. I think it's a spiritual problem. It's that what am I going to accomplish? Better yet, to quote The Simpsons, how are we going to catch up to the rest of the class by going slower than they are? And that's the issue. I think there's going to be let's imagine that nothing changes right now. Everything that we're doing, we keep doing. Nobody has actually, I've not seen anybody talk about the impending wealth collapse and monetary collapse of the United States when boomers transfer their houses when they die and millennials and older Gen Z begin to inherit these homes. The value of those homes will drop by 70% or so. It's pretty simple math. Boomers all buy houses, and some of them actually have investment properties. I know not all boomers do. I'm just saying. Like, I think it's like 90% of boomers own homes. 70-something% of Gen X owns homes. 50% of millennials own homes. And it's I think only a tiny fraction of Gen Z actually owns homes. A boomer owns, let's say they own one house. And that house is worth $700,000 because the prices are going nuts. They live in a suburban area outside of Chicago or something. They die. That house goes to their millennial kids who say, I don't want to move to the suburbs of Chicago. I moved out. I live in New York. They call an agent and say, sell the property. The agent says, okay, I'll put it on the market. Estimated value $700K. You think a millennial or a Gen Zer is going to be able to buy that? Nope. How are they going to raise $140,000 for a down payment on one of those houses? Not going to happen. So then the agent says, we can't get any offers. So they say, okay, well then lower the price. What do you think we can get for it? And like, I don't know, we'll put it at 6. No offers. 5, no offers. 4, no offers. 3, no offers. Gen Z doesn't have money to put a down payment on a house. The median 401k retirement for a millennial right now, mind you, who is 40 years old, is $15,000 to $20,000. You ain't retiring off that. And Gen Z, they have something like 5,000. If they do even have one, I think only 30% actually do, and it's microscopic. So how are they, or look, millennials are 40 years old and they can't, and only half of them own houses and they have no retirement. The coming economic collapse is going to be worse than anybody imagines. The moment the boomers start dying off, and I mean that with no disrespect, but when they start aging out and passing on, and the properties and the equities and everything they hold transfer to the younger generation, that wealth is erased overnight because no one can buy it. And if there's no demand and no ability to buy it, the price is going to collapse.
Right. It reminds me of these practically ghost towns in Japan that are outside of the city, because this is mostly because of their low birth rates. These older people die and they own homes outside of cities, and they either don't have children to inherit them, or the children they had, the 1 or 2 children they had, are not interested in owning those homes. And now they're just ghost towns, and a lot of Westerners are interested in buying those homes because they're incredibly cheap.
Yeah, I've seen some of that.
I think the solution is providing them jobs like this. I actually think a lot of Gen Zers will take jobs like this, especially the further out from the city you get. I also think there's a problem with not teaching Gen Zers fiscal responsibility, or now even younger kids. I have a lot of friends, I'm Gen Z, so I have a lot of friends who just have like either no job or like screw around jobs where they're not like actually real jobs. But if you provide them jobs like this, I mean, I'm from like the sticks in upstate New York on the Canadian border, and everybody wants to work up there. When I was in high school, everybody wanted to work on a farm when they're 14, like they're itching to work. And that's not the same for the cities, and the closer you get to the cities, it's not so much like this. But there are definitely Gen Zers, like I think a high number of them that would take factory jobs like this if you put the factories in the right spot.
There's another scenario.
What's that?
When the millennials inherit the homes and then put them on the market, BlackRock buys them up.
Right.
And then you will own nothing, and you will live in the pods, and you will eat the bugs.
You're talking about the factories being in the right places. The problem is Gen Z wants to live in either suburban or urban areas so that they can have opportunities for consumption that are actually accessible to them, because obviously they don't have the capital to buy homes and make investments. The only consumption that's accessible to them is basically DoorDash and streaming services. So they want to live in or near cities. So are the factories going to be in or near cities?
I don't think so. I think you put them in places where the culture is working. So like I come from a mining town. Everyone, not everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people, when they get to like a legal working age, like 18 to, they're out of high school, 18 to 25, whatever, they go and work in the mines, and they're happy to do that, and they love it because they're making good money, whatever. So you have to put them in places where the culture is to work. And I think when you put the factories in those places, the town around it will develop on its own. And it's not like a mine where I'm from. The mine dries up, the town goes to crap. But
I think the issue largely is that younger generations, starting with probably to a smaller degree Gen X, to a greater degree millennials, to a great degree millennials, and then to an even greater degree Gen Z, the older generation continually treats the younger generation like incompetent children, incapable of doing anything. Mm-hmm. So whereas a 22-year-old man should be either running his own shop or the manager of a business or doing like a mid-level position with starting out his family, buying his first home, having kids, today in the news, in the media, in our culture, they will say a 22-year-old is a child. Like a 22-year-old fully grown adult human being, and they treat him like a child. Mm-hmm. And so we don't have, how many Gen Z politicians are there?
I don't think, a handful.
Oh,
people run for stuff.
Who's that chick with the keffia?
Yeah, but she's not in. So
I mean, is Jasmine
Plenty
Crockett?
who want to try.
I don't think she's Gen
I'm
Z.
not sure how old Jasmine
me
Crockett
see.
is.
How many millennial are there?
Plenty millennials.
A greater number now, but I would say massively delayed. And part of it is they say that when the
Oh no, Jasmine
There's
Crockett's a millennial.
170% increase in Gen Z lawmakers taking office as of 2023.
but what does that mean?
State reps.
Is that in
Seven-
yeah?
I
Is
don't
that state
know.
reps or is that in Congress?
And how many of them are communists?
Yeah.
Probably most.
A lot of them, I'd imagine. So, look, my view is when you see these stories of 30-year-old virgins, we had a movie that came out, what was it, 10, 15 years ago called The 40-Year-Old Virgin. And it was like, ha, 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 how funny of this guy who, like, never had it happen for him. Now we have increasing reports that young men have isolated themselves and there's, like, early 30s virgin men. You know, and again, I always mention this because Seamus Coughlin said based at that story because he's thinking it from a religious perspective. And I'm like, bro, no.
Only
They should have
Maxwell
been
Frost.
married at 22. Only one?
Only Maxwell Frost, who's from Democrat from Florida's 10th congressional district. He was first elected in 2022 at the age of 25. He remains the only Gen Z member in the 119th Congress.
To be fair, I mean, I think the oldest Gen Z is what, 27?
I think so. I'm not
So
sure.
There's a good amount in like state politics, I think. Like
Yeah.
Braxton
I'm
Mitchell
looking at
is a friend
the
of mine.
state reps.
Yeah.
But I largely what I mean is industry is like the boomer generation is not letting go. And it's because they're living longer. People used to die and retire much earlier. Now the retirement age is getting pushed. People are living longer. I'm not saying this to disrespect you boomers, but boomers are not letting go of their wealth and property and assets. So millennials have accrued very little. Gen Z has accrued much less. And still, Gen Z and millennials look up to boomers who are past retirement age by now.
I think it also goes back to, like I said,
Everyone forgets Gen X, by the way. That's why I didn't mention them.
Yeah, well, we're quiet.
fiscal education in school. Like another problem is like Gen Zers do have some degree of money. It's not a lot, right? But they're also not taking any of their money and investing it. They're not taking any of their money and doing anything with it that will cause that money to grow over time because they're not taught to do that, which is a problem. Because if you don't start saving for retirement until you're 45 years old, you're probably not going to be retiring at the age of 65, right?
Look, let me just round out this segment by saying millennials can't retire. There's no reality where a millennial retires. None. Me? Well, I don't care. I imagine I'll end up like 80 years old doing some kind of show to a bunch of other 80-year-olds going like, yeah, I was watching the news on the virtual thing today, and
I mean, we're already complaining about the kids, so it'd be complaining about the kids.
they're on my lawn again.
Yeah.
But look, man, when I pulled up the data today, because I was looking at the left, the youth left, overwhelmingly pro-violence, and I saw that the median 401k for a millennial is $15,000 to $20,000. I was like, all right, let's put that into wealth management with a historic return of 7%, where you can extract about 3% without hurting your principal. 3%.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have a couple $600, or was that $600 a year? You're pulling 3%. You get $600. Good luck. 20,000. Wow.
Yeah.
You ain't going anywhere with that.
No, people are going to be working till, forever.
$50 a month. Yeah, till they're dead. And I got to tell you, it's going to be really weird. Although one thing that could happen is a slingshot effect, where when the boomers start passing on and millennials all start absorbing all of this wealth instantly all at once in a tidal wave, and they're all going to be probably 65 years old, because let's be real, I mean, people are living longer. Instantly overnight, they're going to have access to all of this stuff. They can trade it amongst themselves, I guess, and then they'll just hold it. But then they're not long for this mortal coil, and then it's going to be just wealth continually accrued by the older and older generations until the whole thing just breaks. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.